Good morning. It's May 1st, Labor Day here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with President Yoon Suk Yeol's return home from his state visit to the U.S. The South Korean leader has wrapped up his week-long trip, bringing home new deals and fresh commitments from Washington. Follow-up measures toward tangible outcomes are on the way. Ukraine takes responsibility for the massive fire at an oil reserve in Russian-controlled Crimea and says that preparations for an expected counterattack against Russia are in final stages. And despite being on the losing side, Tottenham Hotspur's Heung-min scored his 10th English Premier League goal of the season, extending his double-digit league scoring streak to 7 seasons. Returning from his trip to Washington, D.C. and Boston, President Yoon Suk Yeol arrived back in Seoul on Sunday afternoon. Now, to wrap up his major achievements, here's our correspondent, Oh Soo-young.
Touching down in Seoul on Sunday afternoon, President Yoon Suk Yeol returned from his official U.S. visit with a number of agreements aimed at broadening and deepening the 70-year alliance. The most notable outcome was the Washington Declaration, a separate document he produced with Joe Biden following their summit. To address North Korea's growing nuclear threat, the declaration reaffirmed Washington's extended deterrence commitment to defending its ally. It also established a nuclear consultative group to provide Seoul with more insights on how the US plans and acts upon the use of nuclear weapons. Critics, however, say the consultative group may fall short of expectations, as US officials say they do not consider the new body a form of nuclear sharing with the South, like its arrangement with NATO. On the economic front, Yoon's biggest task was addressing concerns about America's industrial guardrails against China and tax credit policies hurting South Korean chip and automakers. Without immediate solutions, the two sides agreed to mitigate uncertainty for the South Korean firms through close consultations in light of the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act. Calling himself South Korea's #1 salesman, Yoon held a number of roundtables and business events, garnering some $5.9 billion in investment from US firms including Netflix. Some 50 MOUs were signed among the over 120 corporate leaders who made up his business delegation, focusing on the high-tech and bio sectors, agreeing to join together across all crucial strategic technologies, from semiconductor supply chains to the research and development of quantum and space tech. Yoon and Biden established a National Security Council-level economic dialogue and reaffirmed their commitment to developing the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. President Yoon also pushed to make South Korea a more active player in global governance.
Mr. President, your principled leadership has helped bring us even closer together and has made Korea a global pivotal state.
In a speech to Congress, the first in 10 years for a South Korean leader, and in his unprecedented lecture at Harvard Kennedy School, Yoon pledged South Korea, as a past recipient of international support during and after the Korean War, will stand up for freedom and liberal democracy around the world. Yoon's official state visit having set the blueprint for the bilateral alliance and expanding value-based friendship. The president's mission now is to turn his stateside pledges into tangible outcomes for the South Korean public. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And another Heung Kishida summit may come early this month. And this time it'll be here in Seoul, as the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is reportedly planning the trip that follows President Yoon's visit to Tokyo in March, as the two nations work on improving bilateral ties. Our Lee Kyung-eun reports.
Multiple Japanese media outlets over the weekend have reported that Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is planning to visit South Korea early this month, with the Asahi Shimbun reporting the trip could come as early as May 7th to 8th. The visit reciprocates South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol's visit to Tokyo in March, which the two leaders defined as a breakthrough in mending bilateral relations that have been strained over historical issues. Seoul's presidential office has made no official comment on the meeting. Being the first visit by a Japanese leader in over 5 years, it will also mark the resumption of regular reciprocal trips that were pledged during the last summit. In yet another back-to-back meeting in the same month, President Yoon is also poised to visit Hiroshima to attend the Group of 7 summit as a guest from May 19th to 21st. The latest developments come as Seoul and Tokyo have been picking up momentum in their bilateral ties. Seoul has restored Japan to its wide list of preferential trading partners, with Tokyo also having started its own process to do the same. The move also comes as the two nations seek to ramp up trilateral cooperation with Washington against North Korea, which was specifically highlighted during President Yoon's state visit to the U.S., which wrapped up just this weekend. The upcoming G7 summit will likely see a three-way meeting between the leaders. Against its backdrop, bilateral cooperation on defense and stabilizing the chip supply chain are likely to top the agenda. Young-eun, Arirang News.
Now, on to the crisis in Ukraine. The country says it's responsible for a massive fire at an oil depot in the Russian-controlled Crimea. And that's not it. Ukraine says it was the beginning of their planned spring counteroffensive. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
Ukraine is preparing for its spring counteroffensive, with Kyiv's defense minister Oleksiy Reznikov recently announcing that preparations for the counteroffensive are almost complete. On Sunday, a massive fire broke out at an oil depot in Russian-controlled Crimea. Natalia Heung-min, a spokesperson for the Ukrainian Army of Southern Command, said that the attack on an oil depot was carried out by the Ukrainian military. She added that the destruction of the Russian military's fuel depot was one of the preparations for that large-scale counteroffensive that everyone is waiting for. However, Mark Galeotti, a Russia security expert from the UK, warned in a Sunday Times article on Saturday that while Ukraine may show confidence in its counteroffensive against Russia, it should be cautious because ammunition and supplies, such as shells, are running out faster than expected. He also warned that Ukraine may face difficulties due to Russia's fortified defenses. Russia appears to have already fortified its defenses in preparations for any counteroffensive. Recently, satellite images have shown that the Russian military has built large fortresses and minefields in the southern region of Ukraine, which is expected to be the main target of Ukraine's counteroffensive. Breaking through Russia's defense network could be a daunting task for Ukraine. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk Yeol wrapped up his week-long state visit to the U.S. over the weekend. Now, how much has South Korea gained from this trip? For today's On Point, we look back at his state visit to D.C. with Professor Chung Gu-yeon from Gangwon National University. Welcome back to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning. Professor Chung, overall, how do you evaluate President Yoon's state visit? I mean, what has South Korea gained and how significant could you say the trip was?
Well, I think it was pretty successful. It was not just a state visit, but it's the 70th anniversary of ROK-US alliances. So it is time to provide a new blueprint to last the next 70 years and how two countries actually cooperate over, not just over North Korea, but over kind of global issue as well. And when you're looking back at the history of ROK-US alliances, we developed from military alliances, but gradually moved to economic cooperations, and now we are cooperating over advanced technological cooperation. So we are expanded the area of cooperation and deepening the scope of cooperation as well. So given that situation and considering the uncertain geopolitical landscape, I think both allies attempted to navigate this strategic environment they face and attempted to find the common grounds, especially cooperation over advanced technology like AI and battery, and even for the space security cooperation. That's a kind of milestone accomplishment for both allies to pave the way for the future cooperations. And in case of the Washington declarations, I think it is a kind of optimal outcome negotiated between two allies. And they are able to respond to changing regional geopolitical landscape, not just for North Korea's nuclear threat and missile threat as well, and provide stronger assurance for the South Korean public and strengthen the kind of role of the regime of extended deterrence between U.S. and South Korea, and maintaining the non-proliferation regime as well, which sends a stronger signal to North Korea and raise the cost of provocations as our South Korea's and North Korea policy actually stipulate.
Right, but we are staying with Washington Declaration on the security front. Now, some watchers believe the Washington Declaration is not as effective as NATO's nuclear sharing agreement. How effective do you think the Washington Declaration is compared to NATO's deal, and also in terms of, like you've mentioned just briefly, countering North Korean threats?
Well, it is not exactly the same situation between European theater and Northeastern theaters. The geographical and geopolitical characteristic between European theater and Northeast Asia is substantially different. When you're looking at European theater, tactical nuclear missiles on the ground is combined with NATO allies bomber. So that's the kind of way U.S. maintains stability on their regions vis-a-vis Russian and Soviet Union threats. But when you're looking at East Asia, U.S. strategic command has rarely communicated with their nuclear posture, nuclear strategy with South Korean and East Asian allies so far. And U.S. FK, South Korea does not have any authorization on the issue as well. So we need to begin in the first place to build a consultative structure in the first place, which is actually developed from the existing one in South Korea, and share the information to discuss the actual North Korea threats and planning at the same time. And when you're looking at the U.S. and South Korea relationship, the threat faced by two allies from North Korea is different from European theater as well. And especially the maritime characteristic of Western Pacific and Northeast Asia, where, for instance, like intermediate ballistic nuclear missiles cannot be deployed, as in the case of Europe, the suggested measures that we are kind of deploying SSBN is the optimal choice at this moment. And considering the upcoming transfer in the future, I think this consultative group is a kind of best way to secure South Korea's security in the future.
Right. The two groups definitely reflect different regional situations. Now, President Yoon's state visit itself is meaningful. That the state visit was the first of its kind in 12 years, and various deals and new commitments were secured. But Professor Chung, what do you think his trip missed or could have put more emphasis on?
Well, given the unstable economic kind of situation across the world, I think economic security issue and supply chain issue might have been considered more. Well, it's not entirely possible to reorganize the current economic security supply chain or change the United States posture at this moment. But South Korea probably must have kind of provide more expectation about gaining more profit or benefit from this state visit. And this is more so, a group of South Korean business leaders actually joined the state visit together with President Yoon. So I guess private sector as well as public sector, they have anticipated much better result out of the state visit. But this is actually more trickier than we are just saying it, because U.S. is not just decoupling, but they are more like a de-risking the relationship vis-a-vis China. So it is more risky, more kind of trickier. It takes more time to consider this process, but I think South Korea could have done more about this issue.
Right. And another diplomatic event may be on the way. The three leaders of Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo are reportedly arranging a trilateral summit in Japan later this month on the sidelines of the G7. Now, if it does take place, how meaningful or significant is such a summit between the three leaders?
You can see the gradual steps of three allies, how they are consolidate their commitment to defend the Northeast Asian theaters, not just for the North Korea, but just the regional, but more about regional issue as well. In South Korea, the non-pen declarations from East Asia Summit from last November has been kind of discounted and less received, but they actually make a kind of commitment about how to make us stable and prosper in the Pacific. And if three countries actually met within several weeks, they probably talk about North Korea, but at the same time, they will discuss more regional and global issue as well, as they discussed already from the non-pen declaration.
Right. Lots of political and diplomatic events on the way, especially in the month of May on the sidelines of G7. And also the leaders of Seoul and Tokyo reportedly arranging another summit here in Seoul.
That's right.
All right, Professor Zhang, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Tottenham Hotspur forward Heung-min scored his 10th English Premier League goal of the season on Sunday. That's scoring double digits in the league for the 7th straight season. For more on Sonny's milestone, Lee Seung-ja has more.
In an epic match between Tottenham Hotspur and Liverpool at Anfield Stadium on Sunday, South Korean national football team captain Heung-min scored Spurs' second goal in the 77th minute as the visitors worked to recover from finding themselves 3-0 down after 15 minutes. Despite a dramatic equalizer for Tottenham in the 3rd minute of injury time, Liverpool came out on top, winning 4-3 thanks to Diogo Jota's winner just a minute later. However, despite the defeat for Sonny, the goal against Liverpool was his 10th league goal of the season, and this means that for the 7th straight season, he has scored at least 10 goals. Having made his Tottenham debut in 2015, Son has scored at least 10 league goals each season starting in the 2016-2017 campaign. That includes his Golden Boot-winning 2021-2022 season, where he netted 23 goals to tie with Mohamed Salah of Liverpool as the Premier League's top marksman. Son also has 145 goals in all competitions for the club, making him the 6th most prolific scorer in the team's history. He'll now have his eye on passing club legend Cliff Jones, who is 5th on the leaderboard with 154 Tottenham goals. However, for Son, more important than his latest milestone is his team finishing in the top 4 this season to earn a spot in next season's Champions League. With 4 more league matches remaining this season, Spurs trail 4th-place Manchester United by 9 points, and with the Champions League spot still mathematically possible, they'll need results elsewhere to go their way. However, Liverpool leads Tottenham by 2 points with 5 more matches to play, while United has 6 more games, leaving Sonny and his Tottenham teammates with a tough task ahead. Lee Seung-ja, Arirang News.
From Monday, inbound travelers to South Korea will no longer have to submit a customs declaration form if they have nothing to declare. This means that travelers not carrying goods over $800 or more than $10,000 in cash will no longer have to fill out the forms on or prior to arrival. Now, the move is aimed at reducing immigration lines. In 2019, 98.8% of travelers had to wait in lines to submit their customs forms, even if they had nothing to declare. And from July, even passengers with something to declare will be able to get their customers faster by using a mobile app. More people these days are enjoying life after retirement by operating small smart farms. Now, these smart farms are not only easy to operate, but also make considerable profit. Our Chung Eun-ju has this report.
Ginseng sprouts grow in this 26-square-meter greenhouse. It can be seen as a smaller version of a smart farm. Everything from temperature and humidity to water and liquid fertilizing is managed automatically. Music is also played to help the plants grow. The farmer has been retired for 2 years, but these small smart farms enable him to continue to earn money. It costs him around 1 billion won to operate 20 small smart farms. His monthly income is around 30 million won.
With these small farms, I come for a bit and get done what I need to fairly easily, but my income has gone up considerably.
This is a company in Gyeongsang-namdo province that manufactures small smart farms. It provides overall smart farm services such as manufacturing equipment, seedling supply, crop purchasing, and distribution. Sales in 2019 were around 2.2 billion won and recorded 32 billion won last year. That's a 15-fold increase in just 3 years. It also means that more people are now operating small smart farms.
We get so many retirees, many actually retire early. They come to our smart farm after contemplating about what to do after retirement.
The global smart farm market size last year was 482 trillion won. The South Korean market is predicted to grow to more than 5 trillion won by 2024. More people preparing for life after retirement are expected to increase their interest in small smart farms. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in India's northern Punjab state, where at least 11 people, including women and children, have been killed in a gas leak. A further 9 people have been hospitalized. The gas leak in the city of Ludhiana on Sunday morning local time is suspected of coming from a nearby factory. Authorities say it's likely the gas was a lethal mix of methane or gas contamination that spread via manholes. This affected residents within a 300-meter radius. Now, the area has since been evacuated and police in protective gear are conducting search and rescue operations. The incident comes 3 years after a gas leak near a chemical plant in Andhra Pradesh killed 11 people and hospitalized 800 with breathing difficulties and irritated skin. Moving over to the United States, where authorities are hunting for a suspect accused of fatally shooting 5 people, including an 8-year-old child. According to the FBI, 38-year-old Francisco Oropeza is armed and highly dangerous. He is alleged to have killed his neighbors in Cleveland, Texas on Friday night local time. The neighbors had reportedly asked him to stop shooting his gun in his yard as they were trying to put a baby to sleep. Authorities say that Oropeza in response loaded his AR-15 rifle, walked into the neighbor's home and shot those who were killed at close range. 10 people were at the property at the time. At least 200 officers are looking for the suspect, and there's an $80,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. Now, taking a look at Twitter now, CEO Elon Musk announced on Saturday that as of May, media publishers will be able to charge users on a per-article basis, which can be paid with a single click. This means that users will be able to read articles from publishers they are not subscribed to. Musk has described it as a win-win for both the public and media organizations. The new feature's exact rollout date is still unknown, and Musk has not said how much commission Twitter plans to take. Some have said the move could lead to more clickbait headlines, but others have welcomed it as an alternative to full-time media subscriptions. The new feature comes amid a series of changes at Twitter meant to make the social media platform profitable. And finally, an ultramarathon runner in Bulgaria's capital, Sofia, has locked himself in a glass box for the next 15 days. Krasa Georgiev began the charity stunt on Sunday local time and now only has access to a bed and a treadmill. He has no computer, phone or any access to books, and he can only speak to the public for 30 minutes per day. The extreme athlete calls the stunt a psychological experiment meant to raise awareness and funds to fight addictive behavior among under-18s. Georgiev has run 30 ultramarathons worldwide, from the Arctic to Cambodia.
Good morning. It's a refreshing start to the new month. Most parts of the country are seeing a natural green background around this time. And it looks like being a pleasant Labor Day for most regions, with big gaps in ratings across much of Korea. However, Chungcheongdo provinces and some southern regions could see dust levels rising during the first half of the day, but the rest of the country will have good air quality all day today. And this afternoon, Seoul will go up to 21 degrees. Daejeon and Daegu will see a high of 22 degrees Celsius this afternoon. We are expecting sunny skies nationwide, with a dry advisory issued in east of Gangwon-do province, with strong wind expected as well. Temperatures rise further tomorrow and it will stay warmer than average throughout the week. Then there is a chance of rain on Thursday on the south coast in Jeju. Children's Day this Friday looks to be a cloudy one. Then Saturday marks Ippa already, the beginning of summer on the seasonal calendar. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. Thanks for watching.
I'm live! 저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해줄 수 있는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 없지. 텐션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.
좋아요.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Good Morning Seoul.
And we're broadcasting to you live from Seoul, South Korea. This is where you can get
interactive radio that you can watch and listen to. Enjoy Radio Clock with me.
Connecting Korea and the world, Arirang Radio. It's our 20th anniversary of our station. For you, wherever you may be, and for 20 years like a friend, as a messenger, and as a partner. We have shared countless happy memories, and this might just be another beginning. As you've done for the past 20 years, and for the next 20 to come, join us on Arirang Radio. Always Korea, always Arirang Radio.
South Korea's experience in tackling COVID-19 and introduced a Korean new day. A Korean survivor of Japan's wartime sex slavery met with
extraordinary climate crisis and pledged to work with the EU to tackle the challenge.
The objective of its North Korea policy is
protesters gathering across the country to peacefully demand an end to hate and violence.
Arirang, what matters?
Lotte takes a new leap beyond its boundaries. Our change will lead to better lives for all. New Lotte, the power of a better world. New today, better tomorrow. Lotte.
춥지 않은가요? 처음 태어난 이별에서 사는 우리 손잡아요.
We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day. We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's May 1st here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kim Seong.
Happy Monday, yeah.
Happy Monday. And Park Gi-hoon.
Good morning.
All right, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Like usual, we're going to start with our news feed, a news feed which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Recently, rumors that Paekdo Mountain will erupt in 2025 caught momentum. The mountain on the border between North Korea and China is thought to erupt around every 100 years. Though it officially erupted in 1903, some Russian records say that there were fumes in 1925. But the KMA soon responded by saying no volcanic action seems to be building up. Recent studies show that the movement of magma is actually more stable than usual. Baek Nak-sam, who helped 14,000 couples in Korea get married free of charge, died on Friday. For 55 years, the CEO of Shinshin Wedding Hall provided free wedding space, clothing rental, and photos for couples who couldn't afford expensive weddings. His wife later told news outlets that Paek was diagnosed with cerebral hemorrhage, and after a year of fighting the disease, Paek died at the age of 93. Last but not least, Netflix's latest show called Risky Business Japan is in the center of heated controversy, mainly centering around the host comedian Shin Dong-yeop. In the show, Shin and his co-host Song Si-kyung interview various people in Japan's adult entertainment industry, and the two make many sex-related remarks, which has made some viewers uncomfortable to the point that they demanded Shin step down from other shows. Now, let's take a closer look at the last news item. It hasn't been a full week since Risky Business Japan was revealed on Netflix, but over the past few days, some viewers went to different websites and broadcast stations starring Shin Dong-yeop in their programs. SBS's morning family program Animal Farm especially got a lot of comments. In just a single day, over 400 posts asked Shin to be removed from the program, even though he had been hosting the show for over 20 years. Now, Shin Dong-yeop didn't respond directly to the controversy, but he did make a comment at the 59th Paeksang Arts Awards on Friday, saying that he is a very curious person who likes trying out various things and new challenges. Now, this news item caught my attention because I too watched this show on Netflix. I heard a lot about it.
Do you?
I did. I know.
You're interested in the
the
sector.
No, it was on like the top 10 of Netflix shows in Korea,
yeah.
so I was quite curious about it. But then I was quite surprised that there was this type of controversy. What about you, Ki-hoon?
Well, I'm a curious person too. And I'm a big fan of Shin Dong-yeop, and I started watching the series as well. I found it very hilarious, but informative at the same time, as we can see the different cultural side of our neighboring country. And it clearly tells the viewers that it's adult-only content. So I think netizens should be a little more mature when they post things on internet and know exactly what they're criticizing. And at the end of the day, Shin Dong-yeop is a comedian and an entertainer. He's not an ambassador of animal cruelty. So I think for me, he's doing a fantastic job. I'm a big fan of him again, and I just want to see more of him on different shows.
Right, taking on new challenges.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of netizens like you, Ki-hoon, that said there should be no problem because there's no correlation between Shin Dong-yeop, hosting and appearing on these type of shows and, appearing on Animal Farm at the same time. But still, some netizens are very concerned. They're actually not too happy with the show itself because the Netflix show has been scorned for promoting the adult entertainment industry and sexual exploitation, which is all illegal in South Korea. But what were your thoughts on this show?
Well, first of all, that's why it's based in Japan, where it's all legal, and it's where it's, it's not frowned upon in Japan as a culture itself. Korea is obviously very conservative and all that, so it makes sense that it's been a bit, shunned upon. But for the case of Shin Dong-yeop, he's been breaking ground in the Korean industry as well, with TV shows like 마녀 사냥.
Yes.
Which is a big hit. One of the first where people got to freely talk about sex and love and in marriage and whatnot, in relationships and things like that. And that was a big hit. I'm sure that faced a lot of criticism in the beginning as well. So as being in the showbiz as well, I don't think it makes sense just because he's got, a Netflix show that's been funded and written by Netflix that he's been featured on to be criticized so heavily.
And you think it's the right step in the right direction?
In the sense of?
In the sense of promoting better sex education. We're talking about sex freely.
I didn't see all of it, so I can't be the fair judge of that. But, you know, if you think so, then we'll put it there.
It's based on our viewers. I think everyone could have different thoughts on that. And that was our news feed for this Monday. Moving on to today's discussion topic. So today is Labor Day, an annual holiday celebrating the achievements of workers nationwide. And this day originated from an American labor union in the 1880s that demanded 8-hour days. Now, though it is a public holiday, ironically, most people do go to work here in Korea, including us. And let's take a look at how far our work conditions have evolved and what type of workers are taking up the job market at the moment.
MZ workers. That's the term referring to young Korean workers who stereotypically don't like staying late at the office just because their superior is still there, think of company get-togethers as an extension of work hours, and often quit within 3 years into their job. Many young Koreans are quite offended at being grouped together like this. That's because behind this MZ worker lies a negative connotation, such as being lazy and not having strong willpower or determination to make it big compared to older generations. Not surprising, given that most can't even buy their own apartment in Seoul just through their annual income. With soaring living costs, young workers are losing hope and motivation to settle down with the money they earn at work. Some are calling for 4-day work weeks so they can better use their personal time and secure a reasonable work-life balance. Today, NewsGen aims to answer 3 questions. 1. What are some key traits global millennial and Gen Z workers have? 2. It's thought that young workers quit easily or change their jobs by the minute. Then what are some companies or specific work environments young workers want to be at? 3. How are companies accommodating this growing workforce's traits and demands?
We're going to be talking about the job market in Korea and key characteristics among young workers. So let's start off by looking at how many young Koreans have jobs these days. Xiong, why don't you walk us through?
Yes, according to Korea's Ministry of Employment and Labour, youth unemployment rate published in February 2023, this year, was around 9 out of 10 Korean youth were in employment. So expected entrance to job sectors at around 30% for SMEs, government and public sector jobs at around 25%, and large corporates and global conglomerates at just below 8%. So we also see a huge increase in startups as well, at around 9% as well. The Korean government categorized 청년, youth in the Korean language, up to the age of 34 or 39 depending on different support programs. This is the official age Korean citizens can receive government youth support. So of course everybody wants to be employed at one of the world famous Korean conglomerates that are known globally as well. But the limitations of the competitiveness in this sector often makes it a bit depressing and discourages the Korean youth as well.
For sure, but it's really quite difficult to land your perfect job, right? Everyone wants to go to their perfect job or dream job, but even if they land there, some tend to quit within like 5 years of getting it. So why do you think quitting has become the norm among millennials and Gen Z in Korea?
Well, there are several reasons why many millennials and Gen Zs quit only after a few years of working. These were some points voiced out based on interviews from workers under the age of 30 with the experience of quitting within 2 to 3 years into the job. 1, not getting paid enough for the amount of workload given. We all know that.
Yes.
2, uncomfortable working environment. Being asked too many personal questions from superiors.
Right.
I've been there and done that as well. Yeah. 3 is wanting to study more to pursue a more professional career and to achieve their ultimate dream. And 4, lastly, not having enough work-life balance. Now, with the increase in fast quitting from youngsters, the steps you need to take to officially and legally quit can be done by proxy now. And as new firms have started this new business model to save time and effort of tedious paperwork and going through that awkward moment of talking to your HR managers when you want to quit. So it's quite interesting how new firms are, emerging.
For sure, they're accommodating to the demands of youngsters.
Yeah.
Now, what type of work environment do young people want to work for, and which companies are they looking for then, Xiong?
Yeah, so South Korean millennials and Gen Zs have been having a difficult time finding the work they truly appreciate. From a survey conducted by the Federation of Korean Industries early last month, the following are what Korea's younger generation want from their ideal company. Let's have a look at the screen. From the survey, Korean MZers wanted a company that guarantees work-life balance at the top of their preferences, followed by salary and performance compensation system, a company that guarantees retirement age, as well as job security and chance for personal development, whilst putting horizontal corporate culture, good communication, as well as social contribution by the company on their list of priorities when looking for a workplace.
So these are quite contrary to what you mentioned, Ki-hoon. If these aren't kept in, they would quit their jobs. So what are your thoughts on what type of workplace or work environment Gen Z and millennials want?
You know, I remember discussing the 4-day working week on the show, and I think, you know, this is making positive progress and showing good results. According to a survey conducted on around 500 millennials, almost 50% answered guaranteed work-life balance, just like what Xiong mentioned, to the question, what working condition makes a good firm?
Right.
And an IT company implemented a 4.5 working day week once every month from 2017. They increased it to twice every month, and from this year applied it every week. And surprisingly, the company saw a steady rise in the total sales, proving that long work hours doesn't necessarily increase working productivity and performance.
And that's
positive
why,
signs.
For instance, and that's why we're seeing a lot more countries implement 4-day work weeks, and that's what youth in Korea have been demanding for quite a long time. And it shows that we have unique characteristics compared to older generations, right? So why don't we take a look at the key traits millennials and Gen Z workers have?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the younger generation have been having a more difficult time, as we've been seeing, finding employment compared to the previous generation, where they had less strict employment policies, regulations, and also competition. So in particular, between the ages of 15 to 29, we had almost 500,000 youths who weren't involved in any economic activity, meaning that they are not currently in education, not preparing for jobs or actively seeking for one, and not enrolled in the military service either. Basically just resting at home. So one of the main reasons that around 18% was because they find it difficult to find jobs they personally prefer. So around 70% of Korean millennials and Gen Zs have university education, which is the highest level in all of the OECD countries as well. So I mean, this combined with the fact that there's an immense wage gap between SMEs, small to medium enterprises, and large corporates or conglomerates has made it more difficult for youth to get work. For example, at the end of 2021, the average monthly salary for an SME was around $2,000 compared to a large corporation, which is around $5,000. So it's less than half of what you get if you work in a large corporate.
Right.
So I mean, that's really due to the change in social environment and education as a whole. Characteristics and expectations in the job market from the youth have changed as well.
Especially because I feel like our generation is more prepared. As you mentioned, we have a higher education level, and we also expect to achieve self-satisfaction and achievement in our jobs, but that's really hard, right?
Right. And I guess, you know, I think a lot of younger generation are more open to expressing their feelings overtly and not, you know, they don't really like walking on eggshells like the older generation. I think we prioritize experience, personal life, and of course creativity. So thus we're not afraid to quit if the work doesn't really match our needs. And, you know, life is short, and trying new things out don't hurt as long as you can take full responsibility of your actions.
All right, and we're now going to hear from an expert and see whether these traits are just confined to Korea or whether global millennial and Gen Z workers abroad can relate. So with it being Labor Day, we're going to analyze global millennial and Gen Z workers' key traits by including Dr. Marlon Twyman, Assistant Professor of Communication at the University of Southern California. His area of expertise includes reading the younger population. Great to have you with us again, Dr. Twyman.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hello, Doctor.
All right, so Dr. Twyman, our panelists here listed a few key traits we found among Korean millennial and Gen Z workers. And do you think they're similar to the traits found among young American workers or employees in other parts of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main things that I think is a lot of fun with the new generation coming up is the level of creativity that they display and the desire to display that at work in various formats. So what I typically see from a lot of my students and mentees is that they look for ways to express themselves through not just like their reports or their deliverables, but also their identities in their online spaces, in front of their friends, in front of future and past employers as well. It's a lot more engagement, I would say, around building out an image, or for lack of a better word, a brand. And they're very creative in how they do that for themselves these days.
Right, and I don't think our generation relies on companies to build their own brand. They're looking for they try to build their own brands by themselves, right?
Absolutely. That is something that I've seen develop with my cohort, so the 30-somethings and then now the 20-somethings coming after us. We've started to move away from our primary identity being whoever's our paycheck name, right? And we're starting to be person-focused, person-first, and I just so happen to belong to this current organization for the time being. But yes, there's a lot more independence and agency and personalized identity these days, which I think is actually healthy.
Definitely. And I also hear in the States, more companies are looking for senior employees instead of newbies, and that's because they're afraid young workers will quit soon. Is that true?
You know, I would say that there is definitely a blend. So a lot of the major well-resourced organizations are targeting both. That's still happening. But to your point, what we're seeing is because of this reputation, I would say, that the younger generation has regarding the lack of loyalty or the lack of stability that they're looking for in the workplace, there are some types of organizations that are trying to focus on people that they perceive as being more or less long-term oriented or being more or less stable. And it is an interesting shift. So for, I think I would say our parents' generations and before, they did look at being, you know, one company type employee, a lifer. I don't know if you all have that term in South Korea, but nowadays, my students, they think staying anywhere longer than 5 years is a display that you're not able to move on, that you're not capable of competing in the labor market, which is a totally different shift.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, as you mentioned rightfully, you know, life of work. I mean, in Korea, actually, funnily enough, a lot of the youth do want to stay in a job for a long time. That's why they want to work in the public sector. They want to work in the government jobs, so they have safety, a job security as well. And I think, in a sense, you know, the loyalty issue is a generalization as well. A lot of youth, of course, want to show themselves as their own image, have their own brand. But do you think in the US as well, it's just you know, do you think the youth don't have any loyalty, or is there a percentage of the youth that do display a level of loyalty to their companies as well?
So I think that's a fair point. Absolutely, that there are both. It is difficult to get into percentages when we're talking about the age range as well as the other relevant demographics. But aside from, I would say, public service, you also do have people who do land that dream job, do land at that top corporate, and it's exciting for them, right? And they will want to stay at a market leader or the company that has dominant market share. But just being honest about the competitive landscape, understanding how many slots are available in a public service organization or in a highly desirable organization where you might not want to leave. There's only so many of those opportunities, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people, probably myself included, we're not necessarily fortunate enough to land in a place that just checked every single box for the foreseeable future. But I agree with you. There are definitely going to be a segment of that population that would totally be content and happy if they landed that awesome opportunity first.
All right, and hopefully we see more companies try to accommodate the demands and needs that young workers are asking for, because they're taking a bigger proportion of the workforce.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Twyman. It was a pleasure to have you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right, and Q, Dr. Twyman made a lot of key points that really, you know, joggled our minds a bit there. What did you think?
You know, I think when he said a lot of millennials and Gen Zs, they they prioritize personalization, and I think it's very different to the older generation where they just stuck to one job to secure that, career. But nowadays, things have changed, everything's different. So I think more millennials and young Gen Zs, seeking different jobs to suit their needs it's a natural thing.
For sure, and I think more companies are actually trying to do that, like big companies, for instance, allow people to change their divisions once they're into year 2 or 3 into their job.
Freedom.
Exactly, but what do you think could be done more to help, Gen Z and millennials stay at the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, sort of, as the survey we just saw from the Korean Federation of Korean Industries, one of the main things were an opportunity for personal development. So they want to be someone who they can present as a viable candidate at any workplace, in different companies, in their sector especially. So I think giving that opportunity, as well as transparency in communication between the management and the employees, is a key in enhancing the youth sort of engagement in the workplace as well.
For sure. And before we continue our talks, we're also going to hear from our global viewers. We asked them what their dream job was. So take a look at the screen to find out. Kokep Crocker said, right now, my dream job would be something with very flexible hours and limited human contact. Something related to the food industry, like they allow dishwashers to work sporadically. Platinum Trophy said, well, actually, my dream job is to advance and assist technology in all aspects with South Korea and Japan, and possibly become a producer or studio mix engineer. These are 2 of my passions. Raul279 said, working in a hotel in a paradise destination like Bali or being a travel guide. My actual job has nothing to do with my dream job, but there's always time to look for that. Now, I think this is a good segue for us to head into our final thoughts now. What I think is needed is more platforms for, millennials and Gen Z to deliver what they want in the workplace. So very briefly, Heung, what do you want to see?
Everyone will agree that we will be taking up the main portion of the workforce, and without this large group, the future will not be in good hands. So I think companies should cater more to fit the needs of the younger workers to maximize productivity and efficiency. So instead of just viewing millennials and Gen Zs as unprofessional, immature, and picky, firms can take this as an opportunity of investment for future success.
Investment for future success and a stepping stone for you to find out who you are and achieve all the things that you want to do. All right, and we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics that young people are talking about. Special thanks to Kim Seong.
My pleasure, Ian.
And Park Ki-hoon.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.